Welcome to Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting. Be bold, be brave, be extraordinary, be vulnerable, be real, be curious, be true, be you. Welcome to Trusting Your Gut with world-class energy intuitive Catherine McIntosh, a show designed to awaken you to enjoy the process of evolving, have fun along the way, and learn to listen to those silent in-between moments. You are the expert of your own life, and nobody knows more about the next steps to take in your journey than you. So please, listen to your gut and discover what's waiting for you to explore. Here is your host, Catherine McIntosh.
All right, my magical friends, so welcome to today's show. I am excited about today's topic, and actually we tried doing this topic last week, but the internet gods were having had a different idea in mind. And so this topic actually is a big topic, and I might get some critics and ruffle some feathers. And I've been in the energy intuitive healing space for over 20 years, really close to 30 years. And I feel so fortunate to see just the magic unfold. And so before I dive into today's topic, I want to start with a story. So years ago, and some of you may have heard this before, but years ago, I got sick, like really, really, really sick. And so, of course, with my body breaking down, I was losing weight, I couldn't eat, I was in chronic pain in my abdomen, I was having fainting and lightheadedness and headaches and dizzy spells, and I just felt like I couldn't move. And so I went to the doctor, and the doctor did blood draws and urine samples and all this other stuff. And it was like this mystery, right? We couldn't figure out what was wrong. And it was like I felt like I was dying. Right. I was a mess. I was trying to work. I could barely work. It was a very challenging time in my life. I was in my I guess I was in my mid 20s, actually, mid 20s. So pretty healthy prior to that. Never had experienced anything like it. And it was scary. And after 9 months of diagnoses and blood draws and CAT scans and MRIs and all of the things that would hopefully create an answer to this mystery of a problem that I was having, um, no one could figure it out. And I took a ton of different medications. All of them gave me side effects. None of them helped solve the problem. And it made me realize it actually is one of the main reasons I got interested in this work, as well as a few other experiences, incidences in my life that really took me on this path to realize that there's something really powerful about energy. And energy is the one thing that you can't see. You hopefully sometimes can feel it, but you can't see it. You can't really taste it. You can't smell it. You can't touch it. But it can be sensed. It can be felt. And so after all of this, with no diagnosis, with no clear solution, and with no clear sort of light at the end of the tunnel, I was at my wit's end. And this sweet woman looked at me in a movement class and she said, "Well, I do this energy work and maybe I could help you." And I went into her, and fully clothed on her massage table, she put one hand on my sacrum and one hand on my belly. And she asked me a question that no one had ever asked me before. And she said, "What does your body know?" Right? What is your intuition telling you? What does your stomach know? What does your gut know? Right? Trust your gut, right? Hence the name of this radio show, Trusting Your Gut. right? And I can't tell you the amount of times that I work with some of the most incredible people in the world who are doing amazing things all over the planet. And they're like, no one else can see this, but there's something. And my question to them is, what does your gut say? Do you pull out? Do you stay in? Do you keep going? Do you change directions? Do you go for it? Do you take a risk when no one else is willing to take the risk? Or do you back off? And almost all the time when I'm at that road sort of fork in the road with the people that I work with, almost all of them say, I'm going to take the leap. I'm going to trust my gut. I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to go for it. And it has panned out more often than not. And there have been moments in my journey where I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I feel a little crazy because I'm dealing with the unseen energies." And yet energy is one of the most powerful forces in the world. So, after that hour-long healing session with this woman who asked me over and over again, "What does your gut say? What does your gut say? What does your gut say?" And she had basically opened up a door for me to look at an area of my life that was falling apart that I was refusing to even look at. So I wanted to diagnose my body, but my body was getting sick because something in my life was falling apart and I was working really hard to keep it together. And hopefully, those of you listening, you can relate. You get into an area of your life that is falling apart and you work really hard to try to keep it together. And in the vein of keeping it together, something in your life starts to not work. And more often than not, if it's a big topic, our body is the first thing to sort of show signs or symptoms of a breakdown. And yet, if we're not paying attention to all the areas of our life, right? If we're not paying attention to the parts of our life that are breaking down, and our body starts to break down, we'll just go to the doctor, which is a distraction. Now, I'm not saying doctors aren't beneficial. They are. Doctors are amazing. I use doctors in my life, but more often than not, doing this for as long as I have, more often than not, the solution is way simpler. And so today's topic is healing doesn't have to be complicated, right? Transformation doesn't have to be complicated, but here's what happens is we go into this crazy idea that because it's something that's happening and we get scared, we get insecure, we get maybe uncertain about what's going on, and we go focus on, oh, my body's breaking down. Oh, it must be because I'm getting older. Oh, it must be because I ate too much tuna, or it must be because I'm not eating enough greens. Now, I'm all for looking at every area of your life and seeing where you're not congruent and not in alignment with what you say you want. That's where the breakdown happens. And so the message, and I kind of have shared this message in different ways before, the message is if something isn't resolving the problem that you think you have, then the problem you think you have is not the problem. Right? I work with a lot of people who want to work on money. And I look at it and I was like, money is not your problem. Receiving is your problem, or valuing you is your problem, or trusting the universe is your problem, right? And so every single symptom that we've ever experienced in our life, especially physically, we want to find the answer. But here's the deal: most answers are not cognitive. They won't come from the mind. The answer comes from, and this might sound crazy, comes from the universe, comes from energy, comes from the unknown. And most people who are dealing with a health crisis or a healing crisis is because there is something in their life that they aren't paying attention to, or they're ignoring, or they're trying to control making it work. And so each of you has the capacity to transform your life quite quickly if you pay attention to the energy. Now, one of the hardest things to do is to trust your gut when no one else can see what you can see. You can see things, you can hear things, you can feel things, you can sense things more than anyone else in the world. No one knows better about you, better about your body, better about your financial future than you do. But what happens is we don't trust ourselves because we feel inadequate in that area, and then we go searching for an expert in that area. Here's the deal, and I've said this for a long time. A diet is just one person's version of what worked. And then they started telling everybody that this is the solution. And I want to say, no, it was their solution. It's not the solution. Right. I wrote a book, Don't Diet, Be Happy. Right. Because my philosophy is there's no one solution for you. Your solution is to trust your gut and start paying attention to energy. So when people go, oh, I want to lose weight, it usually puts pressure on them. It puts restriction and judgment and density and heaviness. And from a place of density, it is hard to heal. So I work with a lot of healers, and I coach and facilitate a lot of healers. I have an online course called the Intuitive Energy Course, which is designed for people who want to get into the space of transformational healing, and maybe they need a little guidance. Maybe they're looking for a mentor. Maybe it's their first time attempting. And this online course is really incredible with weekly live calls with me. Anyone can join at any time. The course is set up, and then you get private live facilitation with me every week on a weekly basis to support your journey. Well, in that vein, right, I always talk to people, I say, nobody knows what you know. Nobody can see what you can see. And so oftentimes we might doubt what we can see because we're waiting for somebody else to validate or justify that we're not crazy. I used to feel crazy as an intuitive because I could see things and feel like I was making it up, right? So let me give you an example. The elephants. Elephants are one of the animals in the world that can sense up to 8,000 miles around them at all times. I actually think it's up to 10,000, but I saw somewhere at some point along my journey that it was 8,000 miles. I believe it's closer to 10,000 miles that elephants can feel through the vibration of their giant feet, their paws, right? That they can sense vibrations, feel vibrations up to 10,000 miles away from them. Now, that would sound insane. How can you do that? Right? It's a sound wave, but how does one molecule, if one molecule shifts in the universe, every single molecule in the universe shifts as well? It's kind of like that. And so back in the early 2000s, there was a tsunami in Indonesia. And the elephants on the island started to, 3 days prior to the tsunami hitting the island, the elephants went up to high ground, right? They went to safety. And all the humans went, where are the elephants going? What are the elephants doing? They didn't bother asking, what do the elephants know? And it's my belief that your body and your spirit and your energy and your being, it knows something that nobody else on the planet knows. And if you take an idea that you have or an energy that you can feel or sense, and you try to find someone that can say, oh, I see what you see. Oh, I hear what you hear, you're going to drive yourself crazy. And then you'll start to doubt what it is that you actually are aware of. So these elephants, they didn't question their intuition, they didn't question their gut. Animals are really good at trusting their guts. They are simple creatures. They are in union and in communion with the earth, with the elements, with the seasons, with the changes and cycles of life, and they don't have judgment about it. They just commune and exist with it. But we humans, we make things complicated. We like to process and sort of solve and analyze and logicize and sort of feel into all of these things, and then we tend to muck up healing. So 80% of diagnoses in the world are misdiagnosed. I was working with someone recently and they came to me with a diagnosis that they have been telling everyone they've had for probably the last decade. And I got to see them and I said, I just want to set aside something for a second. What if we don't label this thing that you supposedly have? Because my belief is that anything that the body presents as a sickness or an illness or a disease or a disconnect is the spirit trying to get your attention that something is off in your life, that you're not aligned, right? And that we make it complicated because we're like, well, what's the diagnosis? What's the diagnosis? Because then if I have the diagnosis, I can solve the problem. And I want you to ask yourself, if you are sitting here with a diagnosis, with something that's gone wrong in your life, and you still have that diagnosis and it hasn't resolved itself, you are misdiagnosed. Simple. If you're taking medication to solve a problem that you have and the medication doesn't solve the problem, you're misdiagnosed, right? And I believe this is just my personal opinion, right? Now I'm not a doctor, disclaimer, it's in my show notes. I'm not a doctor, right? I'm not even a licensed psychologist. I just have been in the energetic space, in the mind body space, in the psychology space, in the shamanism space, in the alternative modality space for close to 30 years. And I can't believe that. I've been doing it as a profession for almost 20. And I have yet to see someone who has a diagnosis that they believe is a diagnosis, and then the medication or the prescription solves the diagnosis. What solves the diagnosis is letting go of the diagnosis and looking at the energy underneath, right? It is healing is far more simple than we make it. We make healing really complicated. And the way we make it complicated is because we think if we can find the diagnosis, then we can create the solution. But if you come up with a diagnosis and you take the remedies or you do the prescriptions and you work with the doctors and your diagnosis doesn't change completely, like eradicate out of your body completely, then you've been misdiagnosed. So I was working with someone recently who has had this diagnosis for over a decade. And I said to them, how many times a day do you think you tell people you have this thing? And they said to me, oh my God, like every day. Every day I'm having to explain why I do this, why I don't do this, why I have to be strict with my diet, and yet this person is really struggling with their energy levels, struggling with their weight, struggling with their body. And I said, can we do something totally crazy? Can we try to eliminate the need to label or diagnose yourself? And they said, okay, I can do that. Sounds a little crazy. And so I went into their body and just energetically, right? When I work with people, they're fully clothed, they're on my massage table. I also work with people remotely over Zoom and on the phone. And I'm always looking at, okay, my first order of business is to take off all of the projections, all of the labels, all of the misdiagnoses, all of the sort of misdirected thoughts and feelings and emotions that are all sort of funneled into this like diagnoses that probably isn't the diagnoses. And so we worked together, we took off the all the stuff, and I just went in and I asked energetically this person's body, and I said, "Does this person have this diagnosis?" And the clear answer out of the body was no. And so then I just asked the body to show me, okay, what is going on with this person? What is the disconnect? And I could see very clearly in their body where they were disconnected. There were parts of the spine, there's part of the tailbone, there's a little part of the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic nervous system. And I believe it's my job to just reconnect those parts that have been disconnected. And healing really truly can be simple if we follow the energy, right? And so here's a simple way. We're going to simplify this a little bit. If you're with me and you're listening, welcome. Thank you for being here. If you are somebody that does struggle with something and you'd like to call in, I do take live callers. Part of this show was for live callers to call in with things that they haven't yet been able to resolve or solve, and then I'll just kind of download channel, sort of direct you in a different direction or offer a different perspective that could lead to your awakening. And so the simplicity in healing comes down to not making things so complicated. So what do? First thing first is stop telling people your diagnosis. So it could be as simple as, wow, I'm broke. That's a diagnosis, right? The more that you tell people that you're broke, the more you create that being a truth and being your reality, right? Moving forward. Right? So if you say you can't, guess what? You create that as a reality. If you say I'm fat and I can't lose weight, you create that as a reality. If you say I'll never be able to find a partner because blah, 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 I was abused, I had a bad, I was adopted, my father was an alcoholic, I've never dated a non-toxic person, whatever that is, the more that you use your words to share with the world what isn't working, the more you create what isn't working, right? And so we tend to make it complicated. We go, oh my God, if I'm going to heal this, I have to like work really hard. I can tell you from personal experience that I have seen miracles happen in a very short amount of time by letting go of the complication, right? Nobody likes, well, maybe some people do, but nobody likes a complicated relationship. Nobody likes a complicated explanation, right? When I look at taxes and I'm like having to re-educate myself on taxes, I've had accountants and bookkeepers most of my life. This year I decided to do the bookkeeping myself, use an accountant, and there are certain things that I want to educate myself on. So when I read some of the legal stuff, I'm like, oh my God, this feels so complicated. But if I go in and I say, "Okay, like, explain it to me like I'm a six-year-old. Simplify, simplify." Energy is simple and energy is always clear. And so the question is, when you're waking up every day, where's your energy going? If your energy is going to solving a problem, guess what? You just open the door to set yourself up for a day full of problems so that you can pat yourself on the back for being a good problem solver. Some of you love to problem solve, right? But what if you could sort of, I want to say, instead of problem solve, like creation solve, right? Uh, not create problems, but problem creation. And so when you look to the past, you create complications in your future because you're taking the energy in your past and you're putting it in your present and you're embodying that in every cell of your body in the present moment. And then you're sort of passing the torch into your future. So, the simplest way to begin to clean your slate and start anew is to let go of your diagnosis, let go of your label, let go of everything that you identify with. That when you identify, it feels heavy, it feels contracting, it feels like it weighs you down, it feels depressing. But if you can start to, guess what? Look to the future, all of a sudden you open the door to possibility. When you look to the past, guess what? My back is to possibilities and my front is to past. So guess where my energy goes? Into the past. My back's in the future. So we as a society, as a group of beings in the world, I believe that we need to start to have our heart and our fronts forward looking towards the future, back to the past. And every time you talk about the past, guess what you're doing? You're facing the past and you're saying that the past has more energy and more priority and more weight and more of your focus than the future. And I personally just think that is a giant disservice to all humankind to live from a place of past. I've never met anyone in the world who hasn't had some sort of serious trauma in their lives. Trauma in their childhoods, trauma in adulthood, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, every single person. So, guess what? In that regard, we are not unique for having trauma. Now, some of us have a little bit more complicated trauma than others, but guess what? The healing of that trauma does not have to be complicated, right? Einstein said you cannot solve a problem in the same way you created it. So if you created the problem in complication, you cannot solve it in complication. You have to solve it in simplicity. So the simplest way is to let go of the diagnosis, sort of clean the slate. And so the message that I gave to this person I was working with, I said, what if you just go, well, I'm healing from something. My body is working on healing something. My spirit is working on healing something. And you let go of the need to explain. Over explaining, over justifying, over defending, right? Needing to tell everyone everything is a huge people pleasing trait. And people pleasing, I believe, is one of the foundational elements to dis-ease. Because people pleasing requires that you look outside of yourself instead of focus on your internal world. And when you focus on your internal world, guess what? You now get to simplify. If it's just you and you, your priority is how do you feel today? What's your energy like? Is your energy defeated and depressed? Which it might be, or is it like, okay, most people's energy is defeated and depressed when they're looking at the past. Because guess what? They just have their heart now open to all the past things that they're probably looking at that they don't want to recreate. But guess what? The quickest way to change your energy is to look to the future. Simple, not complicated, right? Let go of the need to explain or define a diagnosis. Simple, not complicated. Now, there's no way when I was going through my sickness in my mid 20s that any doctor could have said, oh, it's because now maybe in today's society there's more holistic practitioners, but no doctor was like, hey, how's your work life? Hey, how's your marriage? Hey, how's your love life? Hey, how's your friends? How's your support system? How's your satisfaction in your life overall? No, it was like, here, let me take a test and then let me guess if I'm right by giving you a pill to see if it makes a difference. And all of the prescriptions that I was given in that time period, all they did was give me side effects. And then I had to take medication to deal with the side effects, right? Not very holistic, not very healthy, not very healing. And so then I was depleted, right? But the way that you start to change your energy and change your vibration is to look to the future from a blank slate. You would never give Picasso an old canvas that had already been painted on and ask him to create artwork without removing the painting underneath, right? You would never ask him to paint over somebody else's work to create a Picasso. It's a blank canvas, it's a blank slate. And so the reason we sometimes get discouraged about looking towards the future, looking towards a possibility, is because we're dragging the memory, the trauma, the hurt, the disappointment, the distrust, the disencouragement. We're dragging all those memories and they're stored in our body, in the cells of our body's memories, and we're looking to the future not from a blank slate. We're carrying decades of pains and sufferings and traumas and fears with us and going, oh, well, I feel uneasy about the future. But if you ask a 5-year-old if they feel uneasy about the future, most 5-year-olds, once in a while, I work with people who've had a very rough early childhood. But if you ask most 5-year-olds, right, how they think about the future, they're like, I just want to be happy, right? They're in the moment, in the energy, in their vibration. You rarely hear a 5-year-old say, yeah, I ate too much yesterday. I'm not feeling very good. Oh, my mom yelled at me yesterday, so I don't think I'm going to have a good future. Doesn't exist. And yet, as adults, we feel the need to like pile on all the explanations, all the needs, all the craziness that doesn't actually have to happen. So I could say a lot more, and we will when we come back after the break. Stay tuned.
Om Times TV.
Do you trust you? Do you trust your body? What if the key to unlocking the weight, pain, suffering, fear, anxiety, addictions, traumas, and sorrows was already inside of you? Learn to love the skin you are in so you can create the body, business, and life you love. Everyone always says you can't explain what Catherine does, you just have to experience it. From Hollywood actors to New York Times best-selling authors to some of the world's wealthiest and most successful, no two experiences are the same. For private sessions, online courses, live events, and the latest book Jack Canfield calls Game Changer and should be required reading for everyone, go to katherinemcintosh.com. KatherineMcintosh.com.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
All right, so welcome back. Thank you for being here. As always, if this show inspires you, if there is something that is said and you're like, yes, please feel to subscribe, like, shoot us a comment. You can email us on Catherine@catherinemcintosh.com. My team and I read all the emails that we get, and it's pretty cool. I get a lot of emails, people thanking me from all over the world. And so I wanted to read this because we make things complicated. And the truth is, the things that work the best in your life are simple. Simple, right? So, healing is an energy, and most healing happens when our spirits let go of the heaviness we might not even know we are holding. So, I'm going to give an example. Years ago, I was in Dubai, right? And actually, I could give an example from even yesterday in a yoga class where I'm crying. So, yeah, I was in Dubai doing a speaking tour. I think we were actually in Bahrain. So, we had done Cairo, Dubai, Bahrain, some amazing people from around the world. And it was an intense experience. And I was feeling quite emotional at the end of it. And so I said to my friend, I said, I'm either going to cry my eyes out, which is what I thought was going to happen, or I'm going to laugh my ass off. Right. And all of a sudden we get to the bus and I'm like literally ready to just cry. I'm ready to start sobbing. I'm ready to put a story as to why I'm sobbing. I'm ready to be like, oh my God, woe is me. Oh no, I just got done with a 10-day speaking tour. So stressful, right? Like, come on. I was being a total victim to something that there was no story. And that's the point, is most of us are trying to put a story. Why is our knee broken? Why did my hip hurt? Why is my spine misaligned? Why am I having symptoms of autoimmune deficiency or Crohn's or, MS? Or we ask why creates complication. But if we're just to simply sit and listen to our bodies and what they actually need, it's the simplest thing. I look at relationships and relationship conflict and partners who've been together for a long time and they start to have conflict. They make the conflict complicated, where the ones that when I'm watching and they're in conflict and all of a sudden the other person listens and says, I hear you. I hear that you're frustrated. I hear that you don't feel seen. I hear that you need more time from me. I can only imagine how that feels for you. I hear you. Or on the other side, I hear that you think I'm all I care about is work. I hear that you feel like I'm not paying attention to you. Like I hear that you just want to be appreciated. Right? Like most of the time, the way to solve almost all conflict is to listen and acknowledge. And when it comes to our physical body or our mental health, right? Our physical health and our mental health, we tend not to listen. We tend to talk, 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 talk. It's be like, 10 women at a coffee chat. Have a man walk in, he'd be like, no thanks, I'm out of here. Right? Because women talk, 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 talk. But if we can just slow it down and simplify and take a step back and go, okay, I'm listening. I'm listening. And so in that moment, when my girlfriend said, well, whatever you do, right? When I said I'm either going to cry my eyes out or laugh my ass off, she said, whatever you do, make sure it's fun. And I went, oh, okay. Got on the bus and ended up sitting next to one of the organizers. And all of a sudden, they made a comment and I could not hold it in. And I just start hooting and hollering and laughing and cracking up, right? simplest way to heal. I could have spent hours crying my eyes out underneath the covers. It wasn't light. It would have been a heavy energy. I might have needed the release, but I got the release in 10 minutes of laughter. Super simple. So I'll give you another example. Yesterday, my sweet, amazing 11-year-old son, he's been navigating some energies, and we've been navigating some energies together as he's getting older, as he's waking up and having more interactions with more people, and as our life is expanding and growing. And he said, I was working in the bedroom, he was reading, and he came in mid reading, and he goes, "Mom, can we talk?" I was like, "Yeah." I said, "Why don't you pause your timer for your reading and come on in?" So he crawls into bed with me, and I was like, "What's up, buddy?" And he starts to talk. And he starts to cry. And he starts to talk. And he starts to cry. And I just listened. And I looked him in the eyes and I said, "How you're feeling is okay." And I kind of repeated back to him and acknowledged how he was feeling, right? There was a study. I'll digress. So I just acknowledged. And then all of a sudden, there was a trauma that happened to him when he was 5 years old. And all of a sudden, that trauma came out of his body. Now, I am really good at holding space for other people that I'm not necessarily personally intimately connected to. With my son, I'm aware of certain things, and I've just been asking for consciousness to help support this healing, because I can tell as he's getting older, some things that happened in his childhood are needing space to heal, right? I joke with him sometimes. I'm like, "You'll probably be in therapy for that, for me, from me." Something I did, you'll be in therapy for. And so I just listened, I acknowledged, and then all of a sudden, this energy from when he was 5 literally came out of his body. And he just looked at me and I looked at him and I said, "That was pretty cool." He goes, "Oh my gosh, Mom, I feel better." And so the thing that he came to me to talk about, thing that he was having a hard time with, I said, "Hey, look at the energy of that. How's that doing now?" He goes, "Oh my gosh, it's so much better." And so when you are faced with any challenge in your life, physical health, mental health, emotional health, relationship health, financial health, you want to ask the consciousness of that thing. Now, we'll do the body for today. So if you are dealing with a heart problem, ask what your heart is trying to communicate. And here's the deal. Don't say a word. Don't try to come up with an answer. Don't try to talk, 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 talk. Just listen. When you ask a question, listen. And guess what? The body is going to give you energetic feedback. It's not going to give you a paragraph or a novel of all the things that's wrong. And it's like a dog. It doesn't care. It's like, "Okay, my owner's here. I love it." And if you start to talk to your body by asking it really simple questions, what does my heart know? What about my gut, my knowing, my intuition am I ignoring? If you're having gut issues, right? If you're having digestive issues, what are you unwilling to digest? And you can literally just ask, "Hey, body, what are you trying to communicate?" And then don't talk, just listen for the energy. And the way that you listen for the energy is you just close your eyes, right? So if you're out there in Radio Land and you're listening and you're dealing with some sort of physical health condition, whether it's you've struggled your whole life with your body image, or you have trouble losing weight, or you've been diagnosed with a hypothyroid or hyperthyroid, or you have, Lyme's disease or Parkinson's, or whatever it is that you've been diagnosed with, you just want to close your eyes. And you're going to take the energy of the diagnoses off your body, off the table. And all you do is you just ask, "Hey, body, can we please get rid of all the projections, all the diagnoses, all the judgments, all the opinions from everybody," right? Yeah, there you go. And then you just kind of quiet your mind for a second, maybe just connect internally. So I like to close my eyes to do that. And then you can simply ask, hey, body, do you actually have this diagnosis, right? Just ask. And you'll usually get a yes or a no, right? The way that I used to teach it is you can muscle test, right? And I can do it now on a chair, but I used to do it standing. And you just kind of, get rid of the polarity in your body. And you just wait to either lean forward or lean backwards. So you can ask, hey, body, do you have this diagnosis? 99% of the time that I ask anyone I'm working with if their body has that diagnosis, don't ask your head, ask your body. It comes back as a big resounding no, right? And then I look at, okay, where in their spirit is a disconnect? Where in their mental world is a disconnect? Most disease comes from polarity, comes from conflict, right? Comes from disconnect. And so then you want to ask, okay, body, what are you aware of? Body, what are you aware of? Hey, I've been having these sort of issues. I'm exhausted. Okay, body, what are you aware of? And it will, like, I don't have words, but it gives an energy. And then guess what? You don't need to do anything with that energy. It's just like listening to my 11-year-old son yesterday. All I'm doing is listening. And then I acknowledge, okay, body, I heard you with that energy. I don't know what it means. I don't know if I have to know what it means. I just hear you. Right? I love going to foreign countries and going to places where I don't speak the language and I like listening and I like communicating because you can communicate through energy, through smiling, through tone of voice, through facial expressions. The body's the same way. It is trying to share with you an energy, and all that's required, the simplest way to the solution you've been spending your whole life looking for is to listen. Period. That's it. Just listen. So, for all of you out there, I encourage you to simplify, to look at how are you waking up in the mornings? Are you waking up with a density, with a heaviness, with a sadness, with a grief? Then look at what is causing that. And if you can shift and rewire your focus onto something that makes you happy. And in the beginning, you might have to start really small. Wow, I'm grateful that I woke up this morning. I'm grateful that I have a roof over my head. I'm grateful that I'm in bed. I'm grateful that I could take a shower if I'd like to. I'm grateful that it's sunny out. I'm grateful that I live where I live. I'm grateful that I have a roof over my head. I'm great. Whatever it is, start with the simplest things, which is to acknowledge what is working instead of acknowledge what isn't working. Because it's really easy to look at what isn't working in our lives. But guess what? Creates heaviness, creates contraction, can create illness, can create disease. And I have this theory, and I might be a little insane for it, but I really believe it. I've been doing this class, and it's an ongoing online course. Anyone can join at any time. It's called People Pleasing the Class. And I believe that a majority of our illnesses, a majority of all of those things, wow, I'm so sorry to hear that. So, a majority of our illnesses and a majority of our things that we struggle with come from this worrying about what other people think, come from the habit of paying attention to our external environment before we pay attention to our internal environment. And when you start to recognize that the only thing you can control is your internal environment, your internal energy, then your life will begin to shift, right? So we have someone who's writing in and said, I've had 8 spine surgeries. I'm all metal rods and screws. I hurt and feel nauseous a lot. I am so sorry that that is where your world is. And I can only imagine, right, what what you've had to navigate your whole life. So what I would start with is to look at, and this might sound crazy, and if it resonates, great. If it doesn't, you can toss it out. I'm not interested in being right. I'm interested in you having the answer and solution that you've probably spent your whole life looking for. So the curiosity I have when I look at your energy and your body is when did you give up your backbone, right? The backbone to your joy, the backbone to your spirit, the backbone to your life. And there might have been an incident. And yes, you might have had accidents that caused you to have the spinal surgeries. I believe you have an energy in you that is a lightness, that is a healing energy. And I think that it has you've been had to focus your whole life on trying to survive, which I get. And I think that your body is wanting you to start to reconnect with a spirit in you that is actually quite light, quite bright, quite amazing, and lights people up, right? And if you can connect to that energy and start to ask your back to support you, right? Rather than your back not supporting you, it might change the game for you. And of course, this is just online. This isn't a session, so we can't really go deep in it. But I just, I believe that we all have the capacity to change our situations wherever we are, whatever we've been through, because we've all been through a lot. And my heart goes out to all of you who are struggling in the moment. I've been there. I know what it's like. And I also know what it's like to be able to heal it, not through conventional medicine. So I wish you all the best journey possible. But to kind of go back to this people pleasing, I think that most illness, most injuries, most sicknesses come from this idea of people pleasing and paying attention to everybody else, making sure everybody else is happy, not being clear with your boundaries, not even being clear with your values and your energies. And if you are somebody who's sitting there going, wow, I might be a people pleaser, you can certainly check out all the online classes and stuff that I have going on. You can just go to catherinemcintosh.com and we've got all the resources for you. We also have a nervous system reset, which is free, which you can get on my website. You just have to click the button, the nervous system reset, and go from there. So I just want to thank all of you for being here, for navigating life. You are still here. We are in the age of Aquarius, and the age of Aquarius, the next 20 years, is about waking the planet up and being the lights that we came here to be. And as you navigate it, the storms will come, and storms come what? So to help us, right, really reconnect with the joy and with the light within you. And I believe one of my favorite sayings that is very simple, and I started saying this several years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, and it started to change my life. As a healer, I was always looking at fixing, right? And I decided to fire my fixer, just like I decided to fire my people pleaser. And I started to say this phrase that I got from an incredible man here in Aspen, Colorado, who was an incredible energy worker as well. I don't believe he lives here anymore. But the phrase he said, what if you started your everyday with what if there's nothing to fix, no problem to solve, and there's nothing wrong with you? And I would invite all of you to look at what if you stop focusing your energy on what's wrong and what you need to fix, and you start to focus on what can you do from here? What can you do from here? Right? So what if there's nothing wrong with you? What if there's nothing to fix, and no problem to solve. And I wish all of you the best of the best. Inside of you is a light so bright, is an energy so pure, is a consciousness that would change the universe. And if you begin to allow that to come out, you might be surprised by your own light. And thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. If this show inspired you, send us a message. If you'd like to get in touch with us, just check out our website, katherinemcintosh.com. And I look forward to seeing all of you next time on the next show.
Catherine is not a medical practitioner nor a licensed therapist. She has strong opinions and will express them, and truly believes that you are your best advocate for any and every area of your life. If you need medical advice, please consult your physician.